As a founder, you know how it is when you get caught up in overthinking. You replay the same conversation over and over. You second guess every decision. You wake up at 3 a.m. running through worst case scenarios. But I'm sure you've also noticed that overthinking doesn't help. It just makes you feel more stuck. I'm Renita Calhorn, and I help tech founders scale as leaders so they can scale their companies. And today I'm going to show you a simple fix that stops overthinking and helps you think clearly, even when you're under enormous pressure. The first thing to know is that there are two modes of thinking: emotional thinking and functional thinking. And in high stakes moments, most founders default to emotional thinking. They ask themselves questions that seem rational, but actually get in the way of clarity. The best founders don't think more, they think functionally. And when more of your thinking is functional, you use less mental energy, you get to action faster, and you make better decisions. So let's take an example from sports. Imagine a champion tennis player facing an opponent with a tough serve. Their thoughts are few and simple. That's a fast serve. I need to adjust my stance and react quicker. So they make the adjustment, and more than likely, they're able to return the serve. Now take a lower ranked player facing the exact same serve. Their mind starts racing. That is too fast. I'm already down 3 games. If I lose this set, it's over. They start to panic, their reaction time slows, and they're still thinking as the ball flies past. So same serve, same situation, two completely different perceptions and results. One stays focused on what's in their control. That's functional thinking. And the other gets hijacked by an emotional story about the facts. That's emotional thinking. So as a founder, emotional thinking sounds like, why is this so hard? Why does this always happen to me? Why can't I close this funding round? These questions might feel productive, but they're not, because they don't move you toward action. They pull you deeper into frustration, self-doubt, and blame. And here's why. Your brain works like a search engine. If you ask it a question like, why can't I get people to do what I need them to do? It will obediently come back with an answer. But as humans, we often don't have access to the thoughts, the feelings, and motivations that would actually give a helpful answer to those questions, because they're buried in our subconscious. So we end up inventing answers that feel true. I'm just not good at managing people, but they're actually irrational and full of biases. So this is the trap of emotional thinking. And so how can you shift to functional thinking? Here's a very simple technique you can use. In her research, psychologist Tasha Eurich found something fascinating. In the interview transcripts of the most self-aware people, the word "what" appeared over 1,000 times. The word "why," however, showed up fewer than 150 times. One word reflected how self-aware people thought differently than people who were less self-aware. The reason is why questions are often emotional and backward-looking. They dig up old stories and uncover unconscious beliefs. What questions, however, they shift you into problem-solving mode. They anchor you in the present and point you toward action. So I'm not saying why questions are never useful. You need them for root cause analysis, understanding why there's customer churn or a partnership fell apart. I'm talking about the why questions related to human behavior. So instead of asking, why did I fail to close this deal? You can ask, what's one thing I can do differently in my next negotiation? Instead of, why aren't people taking ownership? You can ask, what's unclear about roles or my expectations that might be blocking ownership? Instead of, why did my business fail? You can ask, what can I do to reduce the impact, and what will I do differently next time? So you see the difference? Each what questionable is functional thinking. It gives you something actionable, something you can actually do. It's natural to feel emotions under pressure. That's not the problem. The problem is when they hijack your thinking, when you shift from functional thinking to emotional thinking. So asking what instead of a why is a way to get back to functional thinking, so you can feel more in control and think more clearly under pressure. If you want more examples of how to turn why questions into what questions, leave a comment down below saying what, not why, and I'll send you a cheat sheet. And if you want to learn more about how to master your emotions in general, subscribe to the channel, because in the future videos, I'm going to go deeper into how to upgrade your thinking, which is ultimately what separates founders who become great leaders from founders who don't. And if you want micro strategies like this direct to your inbox, subscribe to my Substack, link in the description. Until next time, I'm rooting for you.